Great. I have that it's 2:30 and we're going to start on time and we're going to end on time. So welcome everyone to this module on engaging families, course A, engaging parents and families in the learning experience. I am your presenter, Dr. Caroline Hoppenwasser, and I'd like you to know that this session is being recorded so it can be viewed by future people who would like to know more about working with families. The content of these presentations comes from work from New York State Education Department, and it is presented to you through Solved. Solved is a NYSED CTLE approved vendor, and you will be receiving a CTLE credit for joining me this hour, and I will give you more information about that at the end of our session together. So I'm just continuing to let some people in. I'm going to introduce myself just a little bit more. So like I said, I'm Dr. Caroline Hoppenwasser. I'm an instructional consultant for Solved. I have a PhD in literacy education, and for the past 25 years, I've worked as an educator both in public schools. I started my career as a kindergarten teacher and also as in teacher preparation. I taught at SUNY New Paltz for a long time, preparing people to go teach in public schools. So I'd love to know a little bit more about you, what grade or grades you teach, the subjects you teach, or your role in your school. And my icebreaker question today is, what emoji do you use the most? And I will show you in the chat my most used emoji. It's the rainbow. I think I try and encourage people to feel happy by looking at it as I text them. So let us know who you are, what you do, and what emoji you use the most. I see we have a music middle school teacher. I'm going to be looking for more check-ins in the chat. I love to know a little more about you. Oh, we've got this emoji. We have someone who works with students with autism, a family worker. Oh, and I love your cute little emojis. Wonderful. Oh, the blowing the kiss. I use that a lot. A heart. We've got a paraprofessional. We have so many different roles within the school, and something that brings us all together, no matter who we are or what we do, is we deal with families, because these kids are coming from home and bringing all of that experience with them. So I'm going to encourage you to keep an eye on the chat today, and I encourage you to participate in the chat. I would love to hear from you. All right, so people who are just coming in, I just admitted a whole group. We are just checking in through the chat. I'm Caroline. I'm your presenter today, and we're just letting people know what our role is at our school, as well as our favorite emoji, or our emoji we use the most, just as a way to say hi. All right, so let's as you check in, stop a moment here and please take a moment to read our norms. I'm going to be most responsible for this green one. We will start and end on time. And I ask all of us to really be here now, take an inquiry stance, listen to each other, and share our experiences. Oh, this is great. Thank you for sharing all of these emojis with me. It's really making me laugh today. Okay, so here are our norms. We want to create a space where everyone feels heard and everyone feels the opportunity to share, because we have so many diverse roles. We have so many interesting experiences and ways we can learn from each other about interacting and developing our relationship with families. So we are here in course A of the Engaging Families module. And if this is something you need more information on after our brief hour together, know that we have 5 more courses, and I will be teaching those over the next 5 Mondays at this time. And I'll give you more information on registering for these courses as well as other courses from Solved PD, all free, brought to you through Solved and NYSED. So let's get started today on our agenda. Our essential questions are, what are the fundamental building blocks of family engagement? And how can I build a strong relationship with families across learning environments? And what NYSED means by across learning environments is, if we think of learning environments as a spectrum, and on one end is all in person, all in the classroom, and the other end is entirely online, as it was in the pandemic. Now we're trying to bring in what are the best of both worlds and how can we meld them to our advantage. So across learning environments just means thinking about, from a range of all in person to a range of all online, what can we do in all those beautiful gray areas. And our objectives are to identify the 3 building blocks of effective family and community engagement, identify strategies for building engagement, and set family engagement goals for your current class. So here we go. I'm going to share a document called a note catcher with you right now, and this has links to everything that we're doing today. I'm putting it in the chat right now. When you open it, it's going to ask you to make a copy. So hit make a copy, and you should receive this document. It has links to the slide presentation, the videos we are going to view, and it has our activities and places for you to take notes. So please let me know if you have any difficulty with that, and I will put it in throughout our presentation together in case it gets lost or people come late. So here's our note catcher. And it's going to be a great guide for today as well as a resource for after today. So here's our first short activity. I want you to stop and jot, whether it's on your note catcher or on a piece of paper, whatever you want. I'm going to give you a minute, and you're going to jot down what's your biggest asset when working with families, and what's your biggest challenge when working with families. And then I'm going to ask anyone who feels comfortable to share with us in the chat. So I'm starting a timer for 1 minute for you to stop and jot and think about your biggest asset and your biggest challenge when working with families. Oh, I see people already putting in the chat. That's wonderful. That's the end of our minute. So I would love for you to continue to add in the chat. And we're going to together look at this table and see what we can add from the chat. I'm going to make it so I can type in it. And let's see what you have. Getting to know the family and their dynamics is an asset, and challenges could be keeping up due to scheduling. Scheduling is always a huge challenge. So getting to know, which we could also put here as making genuine connections and building trust and getting to know families and their challenges. Being cooperative and welcoming as an asset. What else do we have? Y'all are fast. I love how engaged you are today. Thank you. Sometimes as a challenge, the families really want to reach are the ones that you have to chase after. Yes, so making contact. That is always a challenging. Each generation is different. An asset is parents who are engaged. And a challenge is language barriers. I've put that at the top of challenges. It's always the top one. When we have families that are engaged and interested in schools, level of interest on the parents' behalf. So it's challenging, right? You have some families that come engaged and some that we don't recognize as engaged. And what do we do? And one of the questions we are going to look into is, what are the barriers that keep parents from being engaged? And some of them are on the parent side and some of them are on the school side. So it's something to think about. We have parents in denial, which I am going to assume means about either their child's behavior or their child's academic progress towards targets. Engagement shows up again and again. Another challenge is cultural diversity, and I am also going to put that as an asset. So isn't that interesting? Some things that can be perceived as challenges can also be perceived as assets. Thank you so much. Sharing so many thoughts. I didn't capture all of them here, but we have a lot of the big ones that when I do this show up a lot again and again. And a lot of the things that show up about challenges are trying to find ways to engage with parents. So we're going to think about today, what are some ways that we can get parents more engaged? What are some barriers and what are some ways to, oh goodness, I didn't have my eye on the admitting people and they're in the waiting room. So let's move forward with our activities and see how we can build on our knowledge base about building partnerships today. So here's our next activity. And for people who are just coming in, I'm going to share our note catcher, which has a link to all activities and resources for today. I'm going to put it in the chat. All right. So next we're going to watch a short video, and it's called A Conference Story. And it is a parent's view of their experience with parent-teacher conferences. So as we watch this video, I just want you to think about the parent's viewpoint, how this aligns or does not align with your teaching experiences and practices, or any comments and questions that you have. And there's a space for all of that in your note catcher. So I'm going to play the video. I believe I have shared with sound, but if you have trouble hearing, please let me know right away.
Trust, transparency, and capacity. Rethinking family engagement across learning environments. Welcome. This is Session 2 in Module 5 of the TAIL Academy. When education professor Jung-Ah Choi attended her kindergartner's first parent-teacher conference, you can bet she came prepared with questions and discussion points. An academic in the field of education, Choi was excited to enter into a partnership with her son's teacher and looking forward to a conversation centered around learning and development. Choi later reflected in her article, "Why I'm Not Involved: Parent Involvement from a Parent Perspective." I left the conference feeling disappointed, humiliated, and dumbfounded. I had expected something fundamentally different. I expected to have a conversation with the teacher. I expected the teacher to ask questions about Michael's family life. I expected a true parent-teacher partnership for the benefit of his education. I expected the teacher to take an interest in my approach to raising Michael. But all I heard from his teachers, that year and the next, was information about where he stood on the spectrum from struggling to smart and where he stood on the obedience spectrum from disruptive to respectful. Choi goes on to detail the implicit bias that provided a basis for the teacher's assessment of her son's social interactions. She points to the absence of genuine two-way communications that particularly hurts immigrant and non-white families like her own. Disinterest in her family's lifeways and her son's funds of knowledge deeply disappointed a parent who was primed by educational background, training, and disposition to be involved in school. Ultimately, Choi chose to politely bow out of interacting with teachers who did not get to know her or the cultural context in which she was raising her child. When Michael first started school, Choi's email inbox was flooded with requests to help with fundraising, chaperoning, and organizing class parties. Choi's disappointment in her school partnership was also connected to the role she was allowed to have in the school. She recalls, "When I looked through the list of parent involvement opportunities, I found, to my dismay, almost nothing that would truly support learning. Under the terms of this partnership, the teacher did not collaborate with the parent to support family goals, and the parent did not have a meaningful role in supporting school goals." Choi was left wondering, parent involvement for what? In her study of teacher perceptions of parent involvement, educational researcher Mary Christianakis observed that teachers equated parent involvement with parents providing free labor for teachers, specifically by managing student behavior. The teachers in the study, however, did not talk about or treat parents as partners or intellectual equals. They did not collaborate with the parents to support home or family goals, as is implied by the term partnership. Parents can be viewed as uncaring or incompetent when they do not participate in school-approved parent involvement activities, such as volunteering or attending parent-teacher conferences. In this view, parent involvement is a set of actions or behaviors that families must engage in to support their child's education and be seen as caring. We can think of this as a deficit-based view of parent involvement. In this deficit view, parents are socialized as passive listeners, clients, or fundraisers to comply with school norms and agendas. To move beyond a deficit lens, we have to demote traditional parent involvement activities and promote the lived experience of families and school environments. To develop a school experience that is respectful, inviting, and constructive, schools and teachers have to move beyond involvement to engagement.
Right. Let me know in the chat, or please come off mute and talk to us about thoughts or questions that came up for you as you watched this video.
I didn't know that parents felt like that. I know that when I've seen some parent teacher conferences, that a lot of times the parent is not, or I guess the parent isn't informed about the two-way communication that should be had between the parent and the teacher. And then a lot of times it's just that the parent just wants to know like what the grades are for the kid, and to talk about behavioral problems, and then to possibly get more services for their child. That's what I've seen.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's so interesting to look at the parent's point of view in this video. And one of the things that stands out to me is this parent was primed, it said primed to participate and be involved. And so imagine if it's not your school experience to be primed to participate because you've had in your own school experience non productive or non-ideal experiences, and you're less primed. So if you're not aware of or hopeful that you can build trusting relationships with schools, it's even less likely you're going to be involved. Are there any other thoughts or anyone who'd like to share? I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Yes, I would like to say something
Yes,
from a
please.
parent's perspective. Yes, because as a parent, that I have four little kids, and they are all in four different schools. I wanted to participate in parents' involvement in their school, but I'm time limited. You know, sometimes they have their programs in the morning, 9:30 p.m. coffee with the principal. I would love to be there, but I'm at school. And they have so many things, parent teachers fundraising to help the schools. Many of them I would love to involve, but sometimes I don't have the time. And the way the schools go after it, telling the kids that the parents could not come to those meetings, the way they approach them, I don't really like it. The kids will come back home, Mom, you didn't come to this, and this my friend mom came, look at what they're saying. It makes the kids feel so bad, the way some schools push it to the kids that their parents could not come to those activities. I don't like it.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective too, of how it's very stressful to the kids. And so you may have parents who want to be involved in different ways, but the school structure isn't set up for them. So today we're going to look at some different ways to think about how can we adjust and compensate, and how can we make sure we're considering the viewpoints of others. So considering the viewpoints of why parents may not be here, and consider how what we say may make their children feel bad about what's going on when they really have no control over any of it. It's really important to be able to rethink the parent point of view and make sure we're thinking about all the factors that might be involved. Not just that parents don't want to do it, but maybe there's something else that's happening that's keeping them from doing. So what we know are the building blocks of family engagement. And we want to go just from involvement. That video said involvement is like doing a fundraiser. Engagement is parents and schools and communities and students being all together in an environment that works for everyone. How are we all engaged together and we all get to talk and share ideas? So what we need to think about are trust, transparency, and capacity. So obviously we could spend multiple hours on all of these. So we're going to touch a little bit on some of them and spend more time on others. But let's just talk about thinking about family engagement rather than just involvement. We want to shift to engagement. And that starts with understanding that traditional forms of involvement are focused on middle-class values that are not necessarily accessible or desirable to all. So when we say middle-class resources, that usually means also we're thinking about white middle-class values and resources. And we're not teaching all white middle-class children. So how do we start thinking about resources that we are taking for granted? For example, if we think about access to transportation, we think about work hours that match or are able to adapt to school hours, being able to get babysitters, past experiences in school. So it requires us to rethink engagement from something families do to help us to something we do together to help students. And I love thinking about that view. It's the parents and the teachers together thinking about how do we help the students. So in 2003, Barbara Schneider conducted a study of 400 Chicago elementary schools engaged in improvement efforts and found that relational or social trust played a central role in the success of such efforts. So this is the research about why this matters that we think about. There's research that supports it. And it says in schools with high levels of social trust, all parties understood one another's expectations and their own obligations, and the actions of principals, teachers, and parents validated those expectations. So all parties understood one another's expectations. And schools with high relational trust were found to be much more likely to demonstrate marked improvement in student learning. And the higher level of trust, the higher level of student learning. So we're going to briefly touch on 4 factors that foster trust today before we go into capacity and transparency. And so we're going to look at these, and I'm going to ask you to just think about them. And I'm sorry, I have to stop. I'm reading the chat and I can't read and type at the same time. So someone's asking for the note catcher, and I will put that in just a moment. So the 4 factors that foster trust are listed here, and I'm going to show them to you in this table. And I'm also going to go and get the note catcher and put it into the chat for people who need it again. There we go.
Also, okay. Carolyn,
Yes.
when in the note catcher, when we request to look at that presentation, it says request access. So just don't forget to give us access later.
Oh, thank you for letting me know that. I'm making a note on a Post-it note. I will do that. Okay, so here are the 4 factors. We have respectful discourse, and this table I really like because it says, what does it look like? And then New York State wants you to think about how can you incorporate it across learning environments. So respectful social discourse examples are established norms for listening and speaking, transparent agenda with timekeeping and facilitation, and recorded action steps and follow-ups. And it talks about, well, how do we make sure that's really happening? We have password protected class website where class meeting norms, agendas, and minutes can be housed, and a document that is a parent bill of rights. And I love this because now we have it, and we have ways that not only can we have it posted for parents at all times, but we have really easy ways they can comment on it. So that's the kind of thing we're thinking about for trust. We've got respectful social discourse, personal regard, and I love this. How is it earned? Warm personal style, willingness to reach out to families and communities, openness to others, efforts to establish a positive school classroom and climate. Well, there's not a single one of you out there who would not say, oh yes, that's important and I work on it. And so then we can also now think about how do we have it portable or integrated across learning environments so that parents who can't come be in our classroom with us still feel it and know what it looks like. Create a digital communication log with Google Forms that will allow you to track when and how often you communicated with families. Set reminders in your phone to follow up, making sure that you are reaching out and doing it thoughtfully and regularly. The third is competence and core responsibilities, which looks like following up on conversations and interactions, fair, efficient, and effective management of classroom and school, and responsiveness to feedback so that parents know when they provide feedback, it's carefully considered and they know you've received it and thought about it. So use back to school night or conferences to inform families of your communication methods. And I would say also making a video of that to share with those who can't be there. establish personal norms for speaking and listening that can be done virtually or in person, and including a translator. And I will also say, for language barriers, one of the best things that's happened for us as educators is Google Translate on our phone. And if you're not using it or you haven't played with it, do so. It's so wonderful that you can say what you need to say and it's going to translate it into Spanish or French or Mandarin, and then parents can do the same, the opposite direction. And the fourth is perceptions of personal integrity, and how is it earned? A demonstrated commitment to the education and welfare of youth, a demonstrated commitment to keeping one's word, and transparency about commitments and priorities. So that's letting families know about you. You aren't just the teacher, you're also a person. Use short caption translated videos to introduce yourself to families. And use Google Guardian accounts to give families access to daily, weekly, and monthly updates on what their class is learning. So like I said, we could talk about trust for like 12 hours, but we're going to spend a little more time on transparency and capacity. I wanted to give you those 4 definitions of trust. I'm going to invite you to think about them more on your own or discuss them with colleagues in your building. But let's now turn to transparency and capacity. And this is going to directly link with thinking about that conference story and that parents' experience with conferences and how we can change that experience. So we're going to watch another short video.
Data sharing with the intent to create clarity, trust, and accountability is a way to engage parents in the core mission of a school. Parents need information they can use. What is their child supposed to be learning? Is their learning on track? What can they do to help? The Academic Parent-Teacher Teams model, referred to by the acronym APTT, is a non-bake sale approach to family engagement. In this model, traditional parent-teacher conferences are replaced by 3 data sharing meetings a year. Teachers and parents gather to discuss learning in very specific terms. Each family also participates in a 30-minute coaching session between the teacher, student, and parents. Through this process, families gather concrete information on grade-level learning targets and their children's academic progress. They work with their teacher to learn skills and strategies they can use at home. The third and final principle for family engagement is capacity. The APTT model is a great example of capacity building. Research into effective capacity building interventions identifies a set of process conditions which must be met for adult participants to come away from a learning experience with new knowledge and the ability and desire to apply it.
Okay, so let's think about those definitions for a moment. Transparency is the practice of sharing information regarding the school's successes and struggles with families. So here are the things that parents and families need information that they can use. What is their child supposed to be learning? Is their learning on track? And what can they do to help? So here's what I want you to do right now. We're going to do another little stop and jot for a minute. And I want you to answer for what's happening now, currently in your classroom, your school, in your sphere of influence. How are you currently providing transparent information for parents on these 3 questions? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that, and then you can share in the chat. that's our minute. A minute goes by really quickly. So I'd love if you would share in the chat, what are ways currently that you are transparent with families? What does that look like in your school environment for these 3 questions? Taking pictures of child's work with comments. Ooh, that's nice. Google Class Meet invite with Google Class Tours. Feedback a minimum of 2 times a week using the Glow and Grow format, always starting with good news, followed by an improvement scenario. Love that. A glow and a grow. We used to call that stars and wishes where I was. So here's what we're going to go now and think about capacity. Keep putting your things in the chat. Read your colleagues' things in the chat. And let's talk about this APTT model that New York State Ed has shared, which has some really great components. Whoops, I've gone backwards. So academic parent teacher teams is what it's called. And it would replace traditional parent teacher conferences. And its format is 3 data sharing meetings where you share data about the school with everyone. There's a coaching component where, for example, if you said, here is your glow and grow, here's a grow, here's where we need growth. There, instead of just a conference where we tell you about the areas for growth, there's coaching with parents to help them know how to help the child with that at home. And again, share skills and strategies to use at home. But they come with this coaching, so you then know what to do with it. Oh, look at y'all are blowing up the chat with ways to help. So here's what we're going to do to learn more about this model to help you envision how it might be applicable where you are. I have on your note catcher, and I'm also going to put in the chat, 2 6-minute videos. You're going to choose one of them, and I'm going to share. They're both very similar. They're just people like choice. So you've got one of these videos you're going to choose and watch here now on your on mute, and then you're going to take notes on what interests you, and I will then, after 6 minutes is up, set up breakout rooms where you can go and discuss with colleagues thoughts and questions you have about building capacity and transparency with this model. So let me copy and paste in case anyone's having trouble with the note catcher. This is one of the videos. And this is the other. And again, you only need to watch one. So I'm going to ask everyone now to choose one of the videos and watch it taking notes. At the end, I'm going to open breakout rooms where you can go and discuss what you've learned. If you have any questions or technology difficulties, please let me know and I will try to help. I don't guarantee that I can fix it, but I will try. And I got a thumbs up. Thank you. That means good things. All right, we're giving everyone their minute to get back from the breakout rooms. If you are already back, please feel free to share in the chat. Oh, looks like everybody's back. Please feel free to share in the chat. Insights, ideas, or takeaways your group shared. And while we're doing that, I'm going to wrap up our presentation so I can meet my goal and promise of getting you out of here on time. So in this slide that I'm sharing now, relative impact of family engagement strategies on student learning, there's an array of activities or strategies here, and you can see them on a sliding scale of lower impact to higher impact. And fundraisers, potlucks, celebrations, those things show up here on the lower impact side. And when you get to higher impact side, you see things like strategies that showed up in the academic parent teacher team model, such as sharing data and modeling learning support strategies, also getting parents to help on learning projects or coming in the classroom, positive communication, goal setting talks where you work with parents and students together. So this circle is where as we move towards family engagement that's impactful, this is where we want to have the majority of our activities centered. So the last activity we have today is goal setting. Consider your current classes, or your role in the school, because we have people who aren't teachers, they have other roles in the school. What's one thing you can do to build trust, transparency, or capacity with families? Thinking about our learning today, what's one thing you could do? And how could you integrate technology into that goal? And so you can capture your thinking on the note catcher. The slides, you can get a copy of the slides. They're on the note catcher at the top. I appreciate you sharing in the chat things that you discussed. And in our last 4 minutes, I apologize, we have to move along, but an hour goes by fast. Here's what I need you to know about your CTLE credits. You will be emailed your CTLE credit within 24 hours of this course. You can also register to take more courses through Solved to get CTLE credits. And you can scan this QR code to do synchronous courses where you come to class and you have a presenter just like today, and you have the opportunity to interact with colleagues. You can also receive CTLE credits for doing asynchronous classes through Solved. So you can do this QR code for that. It's also on your note catcher, these QR codes. When you get your email, that's your CTLE credit, it will have a unique code just for you. And if you refer 6 people to any of our synchronous or asynchronous courses, and they use that referral code, Solved will send you a $50 Amazon gift card. And this email, that it will be sent, the CTLE credit will be sent to the email that you use to register for this course. So Solved has your email, no worries. All right, we want to hear back from you. So we have a survey that I'm going to put the link for into the chat. It's a very short survey. I'd appreciate it if you take a minute to see if you can open it and fill it out. I've just put it in the chat for you. And finally, any final questions or comments, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. And on this slide, if you would like to contact me, you can do it at caroline.hoppenwasser@solvedconsulting.com. If you have any CTLE related questions, you can email admin@solvedconsulting.com. And if you have been able to open the link to the survey, you're free to go and fill it out. You don't have to do anything though to get your CTLE credit. You will get that in the in email within 24 hours because you were registered and Solved knows that you are here.